everybody. Welcome back to the CCSN podcast. I'm Chris here with Chase. Chase, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. Enjoyed a good Thanksgiving, good leftover sandwich yesterday. I can't complain.
Very good. Leftovers have been carrying my last few days. Gotta be honest here.
That's what's going to be for the next couple of days. But watched some good football games. Won some bets. Had a pretty good day. So moving into basketball today. It's just NBA Friday today. We've had some good action. We've had some surprising stat lines. Chase, start me off.
Well, I have been very happy to see the way that Andrew Wiggins has been playing recently. I am a huge Andrew Wiggins fan, and this Warriors team started off very slow. They haven't really figured things out yet, but Klay Thompson's starting to figure it out now. But Andrew Wiggins, man, a lot of people they gave him hate because of his All-Star starter appearance last year. But I think it's genuinely deserved in a way. The Warriors fans did kind of push him up there to be a starter, but he absolutely deserved to be an All-Star last year, and he's on that pace again this year. He's putting up about 20 and 5 a game this year on 50% from the field and about 44% from three. And on top of that, he's one of their best defenders. He's always taken the best guy. He guards LeBron when they play the Lakers. He guards PG when they play the Clippers. He guards John Morant when they play the Grizzlies. So it's just everything about Andrew Wiggins is the perfect two-way player that you want to have. On top of that, he's killing it recently from the field. The last two games, he's put up 31 against the Clippers on 12 for 18, 6 for 10 from three. And then he had a fairly decent game against the Jazz. It's 8 of his last 10, 20 points. Andrew Wiggins is here, and he's here to stay.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a great trade for them. I mean, we've talked about him numerous times on this show about how he was basically a throw in for the D'Angelo Russell trade, and now he's become this star and flourished into what he's really supposed to be. I mean, with this Warriors team right now, my biggest flaw, if I was to put one on them, is their bench unit. I mean, these young guys are expected to come in and thrive right away after 2 to 3 years in this system, and it hasn't really happened yet. I mean, Dante DiVincenzo is supposed to be this not huge, but pretty big free agent signing of the offseason for the Warriors, averaging 5 points right now for them off the bench. Kuminga hasn't taken that leap yet. Moody isn't really that bench scorer that you were expecting him to be this season. So there are some worries for the Warriors right now, and I think they're going to be a little active at the trade deadline. I can't hear you.
Yeah, the one guy you didn't mention there was Jordan Poole. And I think they were really expecting. They gave him a max contract this offseason. He's putting up about 16 points per game. He just hasn't been that guy off the bench for them. He's been very inefficient this season. It's 30% from three and 41% from the field. He's starting to go back to his early career where he was very inefficient, just chucking up shots. And Poole, he's got a very deep bag. He's one of those bag type of guys, but he's never ever in his career been very efficient. He's never shot over 45% from the field. He's never shot over 36% from three. You're really hoping on a huge improvement from him to jump up from that great, exciting young role player to like a superstar type player, to taking the mantle from Steph Curry and from Klay Thompson. And that's what they paid him for. And it's not happening right now. I'm not giving up on Poole. He's only started 4 games this year. We're 20 games into the season, but it has not looked exactly what I think they were planning it to look like.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, especially for a guy who just got the bag. I mean, this guy was supposed to. I was expecting him to walk in a few years, if I was being honest. I didn't think the Warriors were going to be the team to pay him. I thought he was going to go off to a team like Orlando or a team like that, a team willing to spend money, ready to spend money. And, once I saw this contract extension, I was like, wow, they must really believe in him. And as you said, he's been struggling. Only 4 games started. In those 4 games he started, I guess if you want to look at a little positive, he's been pretty productive in those 4 games. So I don't know. There could be a world where we see him in the starting lineup soon, but I just don't see a world where Klay Thompson's coming off the bench too. So there's also
Yeah,
that give and take there.
they weren't even willing to sit Klay when Klay was playing like the worst player in the NBA for the beginning of the season. And now that Klay's starting to heat up a little bit, he's starting to get back to his old self. He's never going to really be back to his old self because he's old, coming off an Achilles tear. But I do think that Klay Thompson's going to be a positive player, and maybe the defense isn't what it is or what it used to be, where he's guarding Kyrie Irving. But I do think Klay Thompson's got the potential to still be out there and be a productive player. And if he's anything near what he can be, I don't know that they're going to be willing to just move Poole into that starting lineup, because whose spot does he take? If not Clay, it's not Wiggins, it's not Curry. So there's
It
not
just
really a spot.
it's just astonishing that you're paying this man all this money right now to do this off the bench and he's struggling. And I don't know, this Warriors team's in trouble a little bit right now. I just do not trust this bench. I mean, I know you have Steph Curry, who's still phenomenal, probably top five in MVP rate, is top five in the MVP race right now. But this bench worries me, man. I mean, James Wiseman's down in the G League right now, and these young players need to take a step, even with Jordan Poole.
Well, I feel like especially with Jordan Poole, he needs to take that step right now. But like you were saying, there's a couple other guys on there. Wiseman, he's down in the G League now. And I was very from the minute that draft started, everybody wanted them to take Wiseman, but it to me made no sense. And this is something that I kind of want to get slightly off topic here, but not really. When you're taking a big man, it's such a different position, especially with the Warriors and with good teams. The big man role is not just be the most athletic or be the best prospect like it is in a lot of other sports and a lot of other positions. It's very difficult. You've got to be nuanced. Like look at Kevon Looney. The reason that Kevon Looney works so well is he takes up so much space and he sets a lot of screens. So while I do believe in James Wiseman's athletic ability and the fact that he can hit mid-range jumpers and handle the ball, a lot of times you've got to look at what your team needs, especially when you're a team that close to competing. I think the Warriors really screwed that pickup, and I think that this is an organization that I believe is one of the best in basketball. And to miss on a top 3 pick like that, kind of crazy to me. And then to see them also do this with Jordan Poole, pay him when I really did think they were going to let him walk. I don't know. It's a well-run organization that's made a few mistakes recently.
Looking back at it, imagine if they took LaMelo Ball with that pick, where they would have stood with the Jordan Poole contract. That would have been
And
a totally different situation.
yeah, I feel like they kind of were forced to pay Poole a little bit because they won the ring. He played very well. He had the
Draymond
highlights.
punched him.
Yeah, the Draymond. Yeah, that was crazy, man. And I feel like that's kind of getting forgot about. I just forgot about it. I was just like, oh yeah, Draymond really did punch Jordan Poole in the face in practice. That is not a positive for your team. I could put that pretty easily. I don't know where the Warriors go. I think they're figuring things out a little bit from here, but they have some contractual issues. Like Draymond's due an extension. And if you don't pay Draymond, who plays that role? Because as much shit as Draymond causes, he plays a very important role for that Warriors team. Just like I was saying with Kevon Looney, Draymond Green takes up a lot of that space and he does a little bit more in the setting up the offense. So they've got some decisions here. They're at a crossroads a little bit, which is something we haven't seen from the Warriors organization in a while.
I mean, as Steve Kerr said a couple of days ago, I mean, they're nearing the end of this run. And maybe one more year, maybe 2 more years. It's kind of sad to hear, but it really is. Steph Curry is 35 right now. Like
He's still balling.
that's insane. And he's still balling. 50-point game a couple nights ago, was it? Or the
Yeah, about
last
that.
week? It's insane. It's insane. So this Warriors team, when they make the playoffs this year, I would still not want to face them, if I'm being honest.
Oh no, never.
No one wants to face this well-oiled machine in the playoff. I mean, I was listening to that Steph Curry JJ Redick podcast a couple of days ago. Steph Curry has put all his playoff games together. That's more than an NBA regular season, I think he said, or equivalent to the same. It was insane.
I'm sure that it's more.
Compare
I didn't get to hear that part, but I mean, think about it. At least 16 games in each playoffs that you win. I think Curry, and that's at least they've won what 4 now. Like, yeah, that'll do
it's
it. So
and
I
they
think that's crazy.
lost in 7-1. It's just crazy what this man has gone through in his career. Steph, listen to that. Just saying. I mean, I know this is our podcast, and JJ Redick doesn't need our publicist our us to publicize him, but listen to that podcast. He had a chance. Old man in the three with Steph Curry. But anyway, one other team I want to talk about, not as relevant as the Warriors, I guess you could say, but the Pacers. I mean, this was a
Yes,
team going into this year that a lot of people said was going to suck, said was rebuilding, didn't like what direction they were heading in, should trade Miles Turner, liked the Tyrese trade, but there was a whole bunch of different rumors going around with them. Right now, they have the second best record in November, sitting right behind the Celtics. I think they're 8-2 right now. Um, their draft picks of the past couple of years have looked phenomenal. I mean, Benedict Mathurin is probably the second best rookie in the league right now. He's averaging close to 20 points, I think, right now. I love this team. I think Tyrese is the next point god, point general. He's going to take over that Chris Paul role where he's just the definition of a great point guard. I think he had over 15 assists again last night. Miles Turner's still 26. I think they keep him in the building. I love the pieces that this Indiana team has right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right with you on the Tyrese Halliburton thing. I mean, the other day he put up, I think it was last night, 21 and 15 with 0 turnovers. He leads the league in potential assists with 20.6 potential assists per game. He's second in the league in hockey assists, which is kind of a misleading stat. I mean, you see Ben Simmons right up there, and Ben Simmons is kind of a guy who just passes the ball a lot. But Tyrese, when you watch him play, it's like you don't see those kind of passes from every point guard. Like this is a generational type passer. It's one of those guys that's going to be able to have that vision does not go away. It does not get worse with age. It does not. You don't lose it with physical ability. You still see Chris Paul out there at 37 years old. He can't make a jump shot. What he can do is still pass, and that's what we get from Tyrese Halliburton. And the difference between the two is Tyrese Halliburton 6'6". So I've got a lot more confidence in his game to age better, and for Tyrese Halliburton to eventually be one of these like all-time great point guards. The Pacers got him for like, and I do like Domantas Sabonis, but they got him for like next to nothing. The Kings gave him away, and I think that's just absolutely crazy. I love Tyrese Halliburton, always have. I thought he was the best of the three guards in Sacramento, and the fact that Indiana just was able to add him for a guy they were looking to move because of his contract situation, beautiful management, just beautiful management. I got to agree with you. I love this Pacers team.
I mean, that probably is up, that could be up there with one of the best trades in their team history. I mean, moving on to Miles Turner, though, this is a guy who many people have wanted to get traded over the past couple of seasons. I feel like they're underestimating how young he is. He's 26 years old. He's putting up his best offensive numbers of his career so far. It's 7 threes a couple nights ago, so it's expanding his game. He's always been a great defender, interior defender at least. Why would you trade this guy right now unless you can get a serious package back? I mean, even a guy like Buddy Hield, I think he had 30 points last night or near to it. Are you really looking to go into a full rebuild right now if you're Indiana? Because I don't think that's the direction you have to head in.
Well, here's the thing though. With Indiana, with the direction they're heading in right now, it's with a roster that's slightly too old to be a young roster because like Buddy Hield's on the wrong side of 30. You've got Miles Turner. He's still young, but he's 26. He's coming up on that second contract, and he's a little bit injury prone. He's a big man who doesn't do the nuanced things that we were talking about a little bit earlier. He's closer to the Wiseman than he is to the Kevon Looney, which isn't bad. That's a good thing to have, but that doesn't, for a guy that's injured, that can go away. So I am a little bit worried about that. And Duarte was one of the oldest rookies. He's like 25 already. Mathurin's already old. So this team's not ready to compete yet. So I think the idea of most general managers around the league this season especially is Victor Wembanyama is available. So even if it doesn't make complete sense to go into a full rebuild because you do have pieces, when there's a guy like that and a lottery that works the way that the NBA lottery does, where you see the Pelicans move up from 13 to number 1 to pick Zion, I think that does leave a little bit of opening to be okay with not making the playoffs. And I think that's
I
where the
understand.
Pacers are.
I understand that, but the only guy I would really trade on this roster right now, if I would trade Buddy Hield. I get
I
that
think they
one,
would
but
too, but I think back to your point earlier about the fact that they're going to take the best deal. I think they're not even on track to make the playoffs right now. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they might be in the play-ins at the moment because they've been hot recently, but they started out slow. So I do think that if the best move or like if a great move pops up that can give them extra draft capital this season, they're going to do that. But who? Like who's going to give that up?
right now Pacers are sitting fourth in the East at 11-7,
Really?
and I mean I just like this team. I just
I
really
do
do. I
too.
mean,
I
they're
mean,
2 games behind second place. I know we're only in November right now, but hey, I mean they're 8-1 at home. They've lost 4-6 on the road. they're kind of the definition of average. I mean, I just really like teams built like this, like the Pacers and the Jazz, where a different guy can get a 30 piece for you every single night. It's just fun to watch. I hope one of them make the playoffs.
I think that I agree with that. Yeah, the Jazz and the Pacers are definitely fun to watch, but neither of them have a full direction and a way that they can win a championship if it's not adding like Victor Wembanyama this offseason. They're still both teams missing a star. And I like Halliburton. He works much better if he's got a second star around him. So like I said, fun teams, great to watch, but like we've been saying, it's November. So it's more important to win later on in the year and win in the playoffs and actually have a clear path to winning a championship. Great to be fun, beating expectations right now. Where do you go from here? That's my only question.
I think Vic is a Spur, though. I think he is just destined to end up in Greg Popovich's hands. I know how the lottery works, but I know how the NBA works too. They want to sell
Yeah,
tickets.
I love that, but then again, when has San Antonio ever sold tickets? Even at the peak of their power, San Antonio is not the big box office team that most people would have wanted them to be, considering they won 3 rings.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just don't want to see this guy in a. I just do not want to see him in a Utah Jazz uniform, man. It just will not be fun. It's really fun to think of it though. This whole NBA draft process because you have no idea where this guy's going to end up. I mean, you talk about the NFL draft or even the MLB draft in that standpoint, which doesn't get as much hype, obviously, but NFL draft, you kind of know where the guys are going to end up, like right now. Like you could do an assumption at least, or who's going to end up where 50% probability, all that stuff. But right now in the NBA, you have no idea. Even with
Yeah.
Victor, who's been the guy for the past 2 to 3 years now, so it is fun to the way the NBA has kind of changed it up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it really came down to the Sixers at the end of the day. The whole tanking in the process that made them really change the lottery a lot because before it kind of was the worst team has a really good. It was like 33% chance to get the number one overall pick. I think it was actually more than I think it was 34 technically. So I do like it. It's fun, but it does leave a little bit of an opening for those Pelicans to sneak in there from 13 and move up to 1 for an all-time great prospect, which I didn't enjoy watching that. I'll be totally honest. The Pelicans are not an exciting franchise, and how has it really worked so far with Zion in New Orleans? I mean, he did sign the rookie extension, but who in their right mind wouldn't sign the rookie extension? That team can offer you 100 million more than the next team could. So it's fun, has its little caveats, is kind of what I'm thinking though.
I mean, the Pelicans right now, you would need Zion to be the exact prospect who he was supposed to be coming to this draft, LeBron
LeBron,
James Jr., to really win
yeah,
anything with this roster. I mean, you're paying CJ McCollum, I think, like close to $40 million a year right now, a guy who's never made an all-star game. You're paying Brandon Ingram, who I really like, but I don't know. I don't know what his contract is, but it's definitely a lot. They're gonna end up paying all these other guys soon, and this iteration of the roster, I don't know what they can really do with it.
yeah. I'm not really. I mean, they are fourth in the West right now. They're playing very well, but it's not a roster that's built to win in the playoffs or built to win long term. They've got a lot of guys that I do worry about injury history and Zion especially. And then there's also CJ McCollum, who I'm not a huge fan of that contract. He's great. CJ McCollum's old, and he's a short guard who can't defend and has no playoff success. So there's a lot of things. And then the Valanciunas Zion pairing on the interior is maybe the worst defensive pairing ever. Zion's defense this season, I know the interview went viral where he was like, "What do you rate my defense?" And the interview was saying like B minus or whatever. And he's saying that's fair. It's not fair at all. Zion's defense this year has been borderline F. Like it's just guys blow by him at such an insane rate. Just watch him on the perimeter. It's the worst. He's got the slowest feet imaginable. And the difference between Zion now and Zion when he was like this top rated prospect and a really good defender is the recovery speed. Zion no longer has the recovery speed to get back there and wipe away a shot that's already 10 feet in the air, 20 feet in the air, pretty much a floater. He used to be able to go up there and swat it out. The play that comes to mind, he was late on the rotation to the corner at Duke for a guy shooting a 3-point shot. He jumped up 10 feet in the air and blocked the shot out of the air. That's cool. He can't do that anymore. So Zion's got to really adjust his game, or they need to make a move because Zion can't be playing on the perimeter. He's got to be a small ball five, pretty much, playing defense, or he can't be out there on the floor at all defensively, which is that's something you got to work around.
I mean, switching over to his offensive part of the game right now, he's averaging close to 22 points right now. He's a monster in the paint, but this is a guy who in most games isn't even shooting a three-pointer. And this was a guy who I believe in his first game, I think he hit back-to-back threes and
Three,
everyone was hyping
three of
that
them.
up. And yeah, it was like crazy. What's going on now? Because if this keeps up and the injury history and just, as he gets older, it's the same exact track as Blake Griffin, if we're being quite honest. I don't know what's going on right now. I mean, I've watched his offensive skill sets. It's not that great, Zion. I
Hey,
mean, he
at
can't he
least Blake
can't get away
Griffin
with the
won a
same
dunk
stuff.
contest.
He jumped over that car. It's peak NBA. Peak
Mm-hmm.
NBA. The Sprite car, I could literally see it right now. But
And he jumped over the front of it too, not even the actual car. It was so weak, but it was funny, man. It was great.
didn't he like keep the car after too? I feel like there was like a whole thing with it. And he like I could be making that up, but I swear like someone drove off the court with it. Like I don't know, but there's just like this image in my head because I was sitting in the frozen yogurt factory watching that. That's just a weird memory I'll never forget. But
That's peak
yeah,
2011 NBA, man. Froyo
exactly,
and dunk contest.
exactly. Like what else do you need in life? But I mean, yeah, if Zion Williamson wins the dunk contest, I guess I could put him in the top 75 NBA players in the world. I'm just kidding, but Zion. I need to see some improvements. And as you said, with his injury history, I don't really know what his ceiling is right now.
There were when he got drafted, people were saying he was a lock to make the Hall of Fame. And
Yeah,
I always thought that was very funny because a guy like Zion has so many issues, and this was I guess I had a little bit of not bias, like whatever the opposite of bias is, because I had just been so enamored with Ben Simmons as a prospect. I kind of started to reel back in on Zion Williamson because I saw a lot of the same issues with the two. They're not the same player by any means. I think Zion's much more aggressive. I think Zion's much more athletic, but I do see that kind of hesitancy sometimes from the both of them, and then there's holes. And you don't want a player with holes in their game, especially if the expectation is them coming in and being LeBron James. Because when LeBron James came into the NBA, yeah, he might not have been the best shooter of all time. He wasn't like Steph Curry shooting. He came in his first game and was hitting like turnaround mid-range jump shots, three-point shots, and he just continued to do that. The touch is the one thing. That's what I grade most prospects on in the NBA. Like the bag work is great. You got to have touch around the rim because if you've got the shooter's touch, you can make a shot from anywhere. That's been my huge thing with basketball. And the guy that had that in that draft class, which is the guy I had number one, was John Morant. And that's why I've always been a huge John Morant fan, a Darius Garland fan. And this has burnt me with Killian Hayes. But I'd say like 99% of the time, if a guy has really good touch, if they can hit a floater with guys on him and roll it around the rim, that kind of guy is the guy that you want to bet on long term, not the guy that's super powerful and has skills that can go away with age and an injury.
yeah, 100%. I don't know where the Pelicans go from here, and the whole, as you said, his whole career with the Pelicans has been so weird so far. Like there were even the rumors last year that he was going to get traded to New York at in the off season. And all these weird rumors. And he goes and signs the rookie extension, says he'd want to play nowhere else, blah blah blah. All these weird things, and the whole Zion situation has just been very weird so far. I mean, the All Star game last year too, like which
That was
uh,
really confusing to me. I did not like that.
yeah, like it's just like it's just a weird career so far. Like you can't really, it's hard to judge. But anyway, talking about another guy in that draft class, actually, RJ Barrett. Right now, we talked about
Mm,
him last podcast. For his last 114 shots, he's missed 78 of them. Like
yeah.
78 of them. And when he got asked this question about it yesterday about his struggles, all he said was, "They'll eventually go in." And I don't know, RJ. I don't know. I mean, I've been watching. I mean, I guess that's what you got to say. But when you watch this guy's tape, some of these shots are disgusting. Like they look
Yeah.
ugly, and for a guy, again, for another guy who just got paid, when is he going to start to click? when is this going to start to click? It's November 26th already. We're 30 days away from the Christmas Day games now. We're almost at that
So
midpoint.
here's the issue with the Knicks. They are the most average team of all time because they have no spacing. There's no spacing at all on the court, and RJ Barrett's a guy who doesn't provide any spacing himself. He's a guy who is at his best when he's driving to the rim and he's finishing one-on-one with contact against a smaller guy because he's a big guard. So he can finish over the smaller guards and he can pull up over them from the mid-range. That's where RJ Barrett's good. I don't think that that's ever gone away. But he can't get those shots because when he's driving to the rim right now, Julius Randle's sitting on the fucking block and Obi Toppin's sitting on the block. And their whole entire team is sitting in the paint. RJ Barrett's driving into like 3, 4 guys trying to finish through them. And then when that's not working, he's sitting there like, well, my mid-range shot's good, so let me try and work with that. But he's forcing the mid-range instead of taking it as a like a compliment to his drive. So it's all contested mid-range shots where people are knowing that he's already going to that because he's kind of sizing them up from the mid-range, which you don't do unless you're taking a mid-range shot, or he's posting them up. And when you're posting somebody up with two centers or a center and a power forward in the interior, you're not driving, so you're fading away at that point. It's not all Barrett's fault, and I do think that if he were in a better position, it might click. But with the inability of James Dolan to fire Tom Thibodeau, who he went out and supported again in a press conference the other day, I don't see it turning around. Like they're not willing to get rid of this Knicks roster because it made the playoffs one time, and they're not willing to like help bear it out by just moving him. So it's a guy that I like. I do like RJ Barrett, but his career just it looks ugly right now.
Yeah, I just don't know again with the Knicks. I mean, their roster right now is pretty deep if you look at it, but just another team that doesn't have that star player, as you said, has no spacing. They're paying RJ Barrett and Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson right now. That's their where all their money's at right now. And as you said, it's definition of mid. They're in the play-in right now. I could see them being the eighth, ninth, 10th seed, maybe squeezing in there, but first round exit if anything, play-in
They're
exit if
handcuffing
anything.
themselves. They're
Yeah,
they're
it's
literally
just
just handcuffing themselves by not blowing it up and giving themselves an opportunity to go get a star. You're New York. Your big signing should not be Jalen Brunson. It can't be. It literally cannot be Jalen Brunson. Your big signing in the past 4 or 5 years is Jalen Brunson.
Julius
Come on.
Randle
Well, he
over
he
that.
didn't even count. He didn't even count because he was when they signed him. That did not move any needles. I mean, he had the good year, but when they signed him, everyone was like, "Are we serious? Like, this is Julius Randle, and we all know who Randle is."
The best part of that was after that was just like a half hour after the KD and Kyrie to the Nets thing, which will always just be so funny. Like, but like with the Knicks, like how do you blow this up? Like who wants a Julius Randle? Like you, as you said, they handcuffed themselves with that Jalen Brunson contract. If anything, this offseason, because are you going to trade all of these guys right now? What are you going to get for them? What are you going to get for Julius Randle right now? I mean, does someone want that Jalen Brunson contract right now? He's playing pretty good. Does someone want the RJ Barrett contract? They gave all these guys money like they won already, and I
Just get
think
rid
they're
of him.
stuck with it.
Just take your hit. Take a couple bad picks and a bad young player or two. Take like Killian Hayes for RJ Barrett. Do something. Just get rid of it. You have all your picks still. Don't do what they're trying to do right now, which is trade Emmanuel quickly for a first round pick and trade like Miles McBride. And they want to get rid and they don't want to get rid of like Obi Toppin, who's starting to get like kind of use it old rookie. They have so many guys that like, yeah, you're not gonna get anything back, but these are guys you don't want on your team. Just get them off of your roster and just it's okay if you rebuild. Rebuilding is more beneficial for your team than it is to sit in a state of mediocrity for 5 seasons in a row while you wait out the rest of your contracts.
I agree with you there, but the Knicks are the most incompetent team in the NBA, so that probably would never ever happen. I
They
mean,
have
I
been my
like
entire life.
that. It's just who they are. They're the New York Knicks, but like as you said, even like a guy like Emmanuel Quickly, I like. I mean, I've always been a Quickly fan even since he was drafted. I mean, I love him and the Maxi duo in Kentucky, but I think that's a guy who should be traded though at the deadline this year. If they're not willing to pay him, I think he's going to get a little bit of a pretty decent contract. He's averaging like 12 points right now. Decent guy off the bench, hit the 3-point shot. As I said, they have a lot of depth, but with Tom Thibodeau and just who they're paying right now, they are stuck as the New York Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with the way that they are operating their team. You should trade him, but if I were to come over and just be the GM of that team, Quickly is not going anywhere. And I don't even think Quickly is like an all-star caliber player, but he's a young player who can give you good moments on a rebuilding team. And like when you're rebuilding, you want a guy that can make your fans a little bit hype.
I look at Quickly as a taller Lou Will, if that makes sense. It's like
I get
six
that.
two, can come off the bench and score, and I just think he could be an asset to a good team. But that is a guy who the Knicks would have on their roster for like a very, very long time, and then they would overpay him, and then Knicks fans would just learn to hate him. It's just the process of the New York Knicks and their franchise.
Yeah, that's true, but I'm a huge fan. I don't know. But honestly, Lou Will, that was like I'm looking it up right now. That was a good callback. And I feel like he gets like, he's a fairly recent player, but he gets kind of underrated all the time. I mean, Lou Will was putting up like 22 points a game with the Clippers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and he
dude.
won like back to back six man of the year. Like he was
It
doing
was
great.
like a good decade and a half that Lou Will was putting up 15 points per game in the NBA. And like those
Talking
guys don't come around that often.
and he how tall was he?
He was like
5'11"?
5'11". Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. Lou Will was short and he was just the definition of a hooper. You want to talk about guys with touch? Lou Will had he could shoot a shot that would hit the back of the rim and bounce up 10 feet in the air and drop it. That's just who Lou Will was. And that's why that's like one of those things that you're looking at when you're evaluating a player. Lou Will is one of like my original favorite players.
I remember even that the post Chris Paul Clippers era when Lou Will got traded there, Patrick Beverly got traded to the Clippers. I kind of loved that Clippers team. The team that made the playoffs that one year
Yep.
against the Warriors. I think they went up 2-1, and it was like a big deal. Everyone was like, "Holy shit, the Clippers are gonna make this a series." Shy was on that Clippers team.
Yep.
Like I loved that
That's when
Clippers
Shy
team.
kind of broke out a little bit.
Yeah, it
That's
was
when everyone
that
was like,
playoff
oh shit.
series. This guy can
Mhm.
be like legit, and I don't know. That was just a cool Clippers team, and then they blew it up to have the Battle of LA for a half a season, and then that just totally got wiped out. Like,
And
remember
then
the
they
hype
had
around that? The
yeah.
Battle of LA?
Dude, and it
Like,
never actually happened. Not once. They never met in the postseason, which is kind of funny to me. But yeah, I mean, who was I just thinking of? I'm drawing a blank here. Oh, Terrence Mann. Terrence Mann was like the guy that everyone was like the next Shea Gilgeous-Alexander because they did this Clippers team went after they went to that Battle of LA thing. They got hurt and then they made the playoffs again and they had this kind of like bum team in the playoffs, but they were fun to watch again. We've seen that a couple times from the Clippers, but they keep trying to go back to being the Lakers, it feels like
yeah.
they have a niche role in the NBA of being the underdog and just I feel like they could win with like a really cheap roster made up of guys that like Ty Lue just built, you know? Because that's who
Well,
Ty
that's the
Lue is one of
thing.
those coaches.
Going to your point with that, exactly. Ty Lue. I mean, look at the guys right now producing for them. Reggie Jackson, Batum, like
These guys
who's
were out of the
another
league, man.
they were out of the league. Reggie Jackson was a guy that they signed, and he was supposed to be their third point guard, and then he just got a pretty good 2-year deal last offseason, if I'm not correct.
Yeah.
The Clippers just know how to play winning basketball, and I do agree with you. If they just, why did they sign Kawhi Leonard this offseason? That
And
was
they're
last
hurting themselves
offseason.
by drawing this out even more. Like
I agree with,
they're not doing anything. And I even like Norman Powell. That was a crazy move to make. There
yeah,
was so many guys on this team that I'm a huge fan of, but
John Wall.
John Wall, he's killing it right now.
Yeah,
He's killing it
yeah.
right now. He had like 25 last night. But there's just so many guys on this team that have that dog mentality, but they're limiting their ceiling by wasting two roster spots on two guys who are just part-time players right now.
And
And
eating
I
up
love Paul.
$100 million
Yeah, I
like
love
a year.
Paul and PG, but if they're not, or Paul and PG, Paul and Kawhi, if they're not playing, they're not helping your team out. And this is a team that doesn't really have that leeway to just, hey, take up two spots, Paul and Kawhi, and never play for us. Nah, you're trying to win. You've got the best coach in the league, in my opinion. You've got a really talented roster that's well built. So
I'm man. I think the whole point with how they're just trying to win with this roster is if you they I don't think they won a ring. I think that this whole Kawhi injury and PG now injury is that closed the window on the Clippers,
Yeah,
but
going into the year, we were
they're
very high
trying to
on.
just I think they're trying to justify I was definitely you were too
Yep.
justifying that shy and 5 picks trade. I think that's really like deep down that's kind of part of this. They're like, damn, like there's gonna be those YouTube videos in like 10 years. Like, what happened with this trade? And it's gonna be like Shy holding like the championship trophy for like the Thunder, and it's gonna be like a sad picture of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So there's all those little things about it. I mean, imagine if the Clippers just kept Shy in those picks.
That's what I was just about to
Like
say. Like
it would be totally
this
different.
team, this team just add Shy instead. With the way that he's been playing, I think that they are absolutely the 1 seed. Like a roster that's got John Wall, Reggie Jackson, depending on the matchup. Shy. Then you've got kind of again depending on the matchup, Powell, Batum, and Man. One of the three started at the three. And then you've got decent big men with like you got Robert Covington playing some small ball for Zubac, who's been the best defensive center in the NBA this season, hands
Yep.
down the best defensive center in the NBA, and he's getting overlooked. I think he'll probably be all defensive first or second team depending on the recognition. But they've also got great role players on the team too. Coffee, he plays his role. Marcus Morris is a very good player. Batum, I mean, he starts sometimes, but he's a fairly good role player. And my guy Moses Brown, he doesn't play that much, but I'm a fan of Moses Brown. He's a tall guy. He's got that one clip at UCLA where Jalen Hands like lifts his
Classic.
chin up.
Let's
Yeah,
just yep.
that's a
And it was
classic
on
clip, man.
Instagram for 3 years, and it said, "This is the teammate you won." But it is true.
Yeah, hey, shout out
I feel
Jalen
like
Hands, man. One time.
Moses Brown had his like 10 games last year, right? Like he had
Yeah,
his
I feel like I
stretch
remember
last year. I
something
feel
like
like,
that. I
yeah, like
don't.
that just brought me back to that real quick. It was
You
either
know what?
that.
He was on three different teams last year, and I think what you're remembering is there was a short stint where he was the Sixers backup, and he never played, but he got cut after a few days. And he was on the Sixers, the Mavs, and the Cavs last year. So
Yeah, I probably just made that up in my head, but I feel like he always had that potential. I thought, but I don't know what's he doing right now.
2020. I like how we're going through Moses Brown career right now. 2020, he was putting up in 43 games, 9-9 on OKC.
Exactly. So I mean, he had potential.
He had that stretch, and he's still young. I like the guy. He's shooting
Moses
76% this year.
Moses Brown was just that guy that you traded for in 2K. You made him a power forward, and he became your sixth or seventh man off the bench. Like that's just what I. That's video games kind of changed my mind the way in sports world a little bit because in 2K and Madden you can make anybody a superstar if you really wanted to.
Jalen Rager was my Eagles franchise legend. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean the amount of Johnny
Oh
Manziel
my
rebuilds
God,
I've
yeah.
had, it's
Oh
kind
my
of
God.
embarrassing.
Back in
It's kind
Madden
of
16, he'd be like an
embarrassing.
82 superstar.
Oh, I
But
literally
hey, man.
remember you pick him up off the free agent
Free
market. He was
agents.
literally like a 60, and then you boost him up. You give him the tinted visor. You go all out. You go all
And you'd
out with the
always look at
Johnny
him in
Manziel.
free agency like 60. This is disrespectful for Johnny
He's gonna
football.
bounce back. He's gonna bounce back eventually.
What was
Eventually,
it?
but
Johnny comeback tour? What was it? I don't know.
oh, it literally was. And I remember I was like 5 minutes away from buying a sweatshirt, but then they were like $45.
Yeah. Now he's just like a
But
frat dude going on pods.
that's our Johnny Manziel rant for the day. Um, you have anything else to talk about today?
Definitely not. We went through Moses
Yeah.
Brown already.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CCSN Sports, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you so much.